Hello and welcome to episode 182 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular guys talking about some irregular beers and drinking them, and then talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular the online client MTG Arena.
That's right, and we got some lots of things to talk about this week. There's a pro tour this weekend. We're talking about Aetherdrift draft. A lot of exciting stuff. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right, this time I have Six Shooter. This is a West Coast IPA from Clifford, which is a local
Mhm.
brewery here in Hamilton that we've tried a few of their beers from. And it features Tiny Bones on it, which is why I
It
bought it.
it
It's
does.
it's like Tiny Bones in if th this beer would have been perfect for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Just a little while later. But
Yeah.
yeah, excited to give this one a go.
Yeah, it seems kind of cool because on the side it says the six shooter is talking about the six classic West Coast IPA hops they're using, which is Cascade, Citra, Centennial, Columbus, Amarillo, and Simcoe. All
Nice.
delicious.
Those
So
are all great hops varieties.
yeah, man, this six shooter has so many bullets. Definitely not playing Russian roulette with this one. I'm excited. All right, here we go, Tiny Bones. Oh yeah. With that, we have some magic news. So, as I said before, Pro Tour Aetherdrift happened this weekend in Chicago, the first Pro Tour of the year. And, well, there's no spoilers in sports, so I'm just going to say it right away. Congratulations to Matt Nass on taking down the win. Came on top with Domain Overlords in Standard. And also just like a really impressive 8-0 record for day one. Like, that is nice. The whole
Yeah.
tournament is kind of like, is Matt gonna lose it or is he just gonna keep going? That was kind of what it felt like. Way to go! It was cool to see his name up there. It's been a little bit since he's been like one of the top dogs, and so it's so awesome to see that, and also because in one of the I don't know if it was one of the Arena Opens, but it was one of the competitive things on Arena at one point. But I played against him, I remember, and he was playing a combo deck, which is what he's known for.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
it was very scary, and I was just shell shocked just seeing his name pop up. I was like, "Oh God, oh my God!" So anyway, just really cool to see him do
Yeah, I was
really
gonna
well.
say it's always like it's happened to me a few times where people who did really well are people I have lost to in events
Hmm.
before. So now you get to experience that as well.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I think that was a Arena Open back before. So there was a time when Arena Opens were not always limited,
Mm,
and that was an Arena Open historic. And
yes.
you took a Bant control deck list from me that maybe was ill-advised
Is that
actually, because the the deck to beat was Kethis combo.
combo?
Or no, it wasn't Kethis. It was like
Oh, it was the Amiria, the
yeah, the Myria
or
combo.
Amiria, Emery,
Emery.
the
Yes,
blue
Lurker
one
of the
with the
Lock.
lurker at the lock, the
Yeah,
one that makes
with Paradox
artifacts.
Engine and stuff, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you're doing a bunch of like spell bombs and things like that.
And the deck was not built with that control deck in mind. It was quite good against everything else. And so I
Hmm.
stand by the choice, given that I did not know about the
The combo
the
deck, yeah.
Paradox Engine deck. But I think it was something that was going on in the Pro Tour or something. I remember Kai Buddha playing it. And anyways, Uh, yeah, Matt was playing that, and if Matt is on that kind of deck, whew, look out.
Yeah. Also, was I playing that control deck? I can't actually remember if I was or not, but if I did, I'm not the like biggest control player, so like choosing that.
That was my memory of it. Was it was an Uro Teferi like
Yeah, I remember
kind
that
of
deck for sure. I just
yeah
don't remember if I was playing it, but I do remember playing it. So
I don't know
so
if you played it beforehand and decided not to play it in that event and do auras or something, or if you took it. But
yeah,
my memory was that you were gonna take that list for that
do
event.
it. Well, I'm pretty sure I went like O3 drop basically. Um, so
I'll give you a 1-3, I think. 1-3.
okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that. But yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Pro Tour in a minute. But we have some events that are happening. We're just talking about the Arena Open. There is one this weekend, March 1st and 2nd. It is like Aetherdrift sealed as it usually is. Try to win $2,000 as usual. There's also another like Arena Direct event. We just had one with Aetherdrift. And there's another Arena Direct event that's happening like March 7th to the 9th, which is Duskmorn Draft. So we had a Duskmorn sealed, and this is going to be the first Arena Direct event that is draft. But man, this just means that these Arena Direct events are making WotC money. It is raining down on them if they're doing them this often now. Like they are
Yeah.
either just trying to push tons of product. It's just like flash sales basically, or I don't, or what, but like this just feels just kind of crazy that it was like, hey, like every other weekend there's an Arena Direct event basically.
And it's pretty expensive. Like you have to spend 5,000 gems, I think.
Yeah,
And
it's like $25.
you only get anything back if you get 5 wins or something.
Four
Four for 2,000. You only make your money back at 5.
at five. Yeah, gravy train's
That's
five.
tough. It's nothing before that. It's like
Yes.
nothing for
Stone
1 to
zero.
3.
I mean, you do get the cards for sealed or whatever, but yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
But,
that's not
yeah. It's
that
a tricky
exciting.
event. I actually played in it, and when I was playing it, I was like, I'm only going to do one run of this because if I like O2 this, that's going to hurt. Just 5,000 gems down. So somehow, like, if they would given me 600 gems back or something for only
You would
getting a
want to
win
do
or
it
two, I'd
again.
feel so much better about it. But when it's just like, nah, you paid 5,000, you got zilch. It's a dagger, you know?
It's a dagger. It really is like, all right, you're almost like if you have your economy or whatever you're doing with your account, it almost feels like, all right, I'm just gonna put in the $25 just to do this one or whatever, because it just demolishes your any investment that you've put into the account. You just have to think of it like that, I think. Like, okay, I'm kind of gambling on this one, but I'm fine with doing that, but it
Yeah,
is a chunk.
you think of it like a tournament. It's like a
Hmm.
tournament with a high entry fee, like $25
Exactly.
entry fee kind of thing. And
Exactly. Like I was thinking about it as like me and Jeff did an RCQ. I think that was like $50 or something.
Mhm.
And it's the same type of thing. It's a sealed event. If you got far enough, you got store credit essentially to the amount that you had paid or more. And I top aided and I got the same amount that I had
Right, like broke
paid.
even, got to
I
take
broke
home the
even
cards.
because I
Yeah,
top aided, which is
crazy.
like out of 64 people, it was like that's it's
Right,
basically
most
like this
people are
event, yeah.
losing or
Yeah,
not
almost
breaking even.
everybody is losing money. So,
Yeah,
so yeah, this is like one of those. But I like them. It's just I'm just surprised there's so many, which is great. It might just be a very normal thing now, is what it feels like.
is the prize for the Duskmourn one a collector's box again?
Yeah, so the Duskmorn one is once again 2 play boosters.
Okay,
So that is still the same. So they must have just printed a lot of it, but I don't know. Well, Overlords won, so you might as well try to get those
that's
Duskmorn
right.
boxes to get those
Go get them.
Overlords. So
Go get them.
if you want to go
Fuck
play
those
that,
cards, man.
yeah. More cards that I say fuck those cards to. Aetherdrift Alchemy is coming out this week. Spoilers are happening basically throughout the week. And I guess, yeah. The March 4th is when they actually come out on Arena. And this is just your normal reminder that, hey, once that happens, they're probably going to add a draft format that is Aetherdrift, but with alchemy cards. So just be conscious of those cards being like, don't pick the wrong draft, is what I'm trying to say. Don't jump in the wrong queue because it happens every single time. There's like, oh, a new draft queue. The word alchemy is the very last thing. We
Yeah,
just always
it
try to
has
give this
happened to
disclaimer.
me. It happened to me with a set I drafted a lot too, like
It feels
Outlaws of Thunder
horrible.
and Junction.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just remember that the draft format you want to be playing is spectacular pile up is the art. That's what you want, the big giant explosion. And if it's
There you go.
anything but that, you're not playing that. Don't join it. I just like doing that because I also have to make a mental note whenever it comes
Right.
around. But
It's as much to remind ourselves that this is going to happen and mentally prepare than it is to
exactly.
let you guys know.
Hmm. All right, Jeff. Pro Tour Aetherdrift, as well as Magic on Chicago. Did you get to watch any of the footage or the coverage this weekend?
I did. I
Mhm.
watched day one draft portion.
Nice.
I watched some of the top eight, so I'll get to that in a second, and then a smattering of standard matches here and there throughout the rest of the tournament. I usually try to do that. Watch the first draft round. By then, I'm usually not that interested in watching like the second draft round because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, what do the players think of the format and how are they drafting it thing. I've already kind of
It,
seen it play out. Um, and then yeah, I tried to catch the top eight. Uh, and I just kind of like scroll through for, players that I'm interested in
interested
during
in.
the main rounds because I never watch live, so I always have to watch on a VOD
Right.
later that night. Um, so yeah, this one, as far as Pro Tour score, I got to watch more of it than I usually do, I'd say, higher than average.
Hmm.
In the top eight, though, when I looked at the top eight, I was explicitly not really interested in watching domain mirrors,
Hmm.
which meant that actually a lot of the later part of the top eight, I
Was
just didn't watch. I
uninteresting.
just scrolled to see who won,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I did want to say, well, I guess I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, I did a similar kind of thing, except for I almost always watch live, and if it's not
Mhm.
live, I tend to not want to watch it anymore because I already know what happens.
Right.
Um,
I just like
but
disconnect. I don't post in our Discord chat because I know you
mhm.
guys are talking about it, and I'm just like, nope, I'm gonna keep
Yeah,
this live for me and do
this
the
was
late night
great.
VODs.
If you're interested, our Discord channel is linked in the show notes below.
Yeah.
But this weekend was a lot more. We were talking a lot more about the Pro Tour, which was really nice, and we had one specific person who kept us up to date, which was really nice. I was at work throughout the weekend, so I could just look at my Apple Watch, and it would just pop up with notifications about, okay, this is happening right now. This person's on a tear. This deck is awesome, and it was really, I loved having that, and so that was lots of fun for me, just being able to be a part of it, even though I
Yeah,
couldn't
like
watch. I still felt like I was connected, so that was great.
yeah, there are like websites or whatever that do this for live
Hmm.
sports, right? It'll be like live
Yeah.
updates, tweeting and stuff. So we kind of got that for free.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. Kind of reminds me. I don't know if you ever watched the reality TV show Big Brother, but there are websites where people, because you can watch the show, you can watch the cameras as long as you want. They're just on,
Right.
and there are people who live tweet what's happening at every second of the day, and
Jeez.
so, um, which is crazy. They just kind of decide it's like their job, I guess. People do crazy stuff. To
I
be
feel
fair,
like AI could do that now.
AI could do
It
that.
could watch Big Brother and tell you what's happening through
Yeah.
tweets.
All right, this person's going through here. They said these words. This is
Yeah.
happening, whatever. But there's a sense of community when you know somebody's doing it. And if it was just AI, I'm not interested in connecting with AI, so I'm just like, all right, I don't care anymore.
What if they don't tell you it's AI?
Well, Jeff, then I will feel like a fool when I find out, and it'll ruin me. I don't engage with that anymore. Big Brother is something that I have to stay away from because I get too sucked in. But anyway, um, this weekend was awesome. I think the coverage was really cool. They had a great like opening kind of intro that was explained. Like it was basically showing the winning moments of all the Pro Tour champions from the last year, which I know they've done similar things like that, but this one just felt more put together. The like breaks in between like matches, they would like not only obviously tell you the scores, but have pictures of everybody above their scores and their names, so you can see what everybody looks like, as
Yeah.
well as they had cards that I hadn't seen before that were like showing players' statistics over the last chunk of tournaments. It's like back to
Ooh.
like a Nuka Pena. So it's like Simon Nielsen. This is all the places that they did, like he did in all these different tournaments, and these are the decks that he was playing, and then flip over to be like, this is all the statistics that they had, and it goes through a bunch of the top players that people really care about, which is super cool. It reminded me of the cards that they used to put in those the World Championship decks that you could get, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it reminded because they used to have like trading cards for like your like Gabriel Nassif, your favorite Magic player, has a trading card and it comes with the deck that you get, or
Yeah.
maybe it's the ad card on the back of the token or whatever. It was kind of like that, and so that was a really nice thing. It just felt like it was pulled together. It's just a good pro tour. I really enjoyed watching the whole, like all the bits that I had seen. It's impossible to watch the whole thing, I think, but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the coverage had been stepped up as well.
Hmm.
Obviously, because I don't interact with it live, I skip a lot of the filler content that
Yeah,
exists.
of course.
So I don't know what was different there, but the couple of things I noticed. The first one was they've figured out their system of waiting for the game to progress enough to stream it without, like, you don't have to sit there while they sideboard. It just cuts to the
Hmm.
next game. They've tried it in the past, but I don't think they quite got it right, where you're either like too behind
Hmm.
or they would catch up sometimes if they weren't behind enough. This one felt really streamlined where normally I'm so accustomed to skipping the like between games part that I
Hmm.
would skip ahead and the game would be on like turn 4 and I'd be like, oh no, shit, because the game just
Yeah,
started
they
right
would
away and I didn't
immediately.
expect it. Uh, and I did that like 3 different times, and ruined the winner of a match for myself. Unfortunately, in the
Uh,
top 8 of one of the matches I was actually interested in, Zevin versus Yuchen. And
oh
Zevin was up 2-1. And I was like, let's skip to the next game. And then I see them interviewing Yu Chen. And I was like, no, no. And I
no!
like go
It's
back.
like, God damn it!
Well, I
Um,
guess Yu Chen wins a couple of quick ones here. 'Cause,
yeah.
uh,
Oh man, but
but yeah, that was really good. And then the other thing that I thought was nice, and I don't think I've seen this before, but it just says how many cards they started on.
yeah,
Like
isn't that nice?
it
Just
just
there's
says
like a
they're on
little.
5 or
They're on
this one's on
7,
6.
yeah, or whatever.
So that you don't have to
Like,
watch them mulligan and you just
mhm.
like start, and then you can always remind yourself, oh yeah, they started on 5 because it's just sitting there.
Like that's what it's, and they don't have to like constantly say it, or they've done things in the past where there's like the die on the deck or whatever to tell you or whatever. But
Yeah, no,
I don't know,
this
this
was
just
not in the
so
way. It
smooth.
was very clean. When I noticed it, I was like,
Hmm.
oh, I love that. It
Hmm.
wasn't super obvious and like distracting, but
It
when
wasn't like a
there's a few times,
flash over it,
yeah,
It was like,
five cards.
yeah, yeah.
Like, no, it was, and I used it several times throughout the
Hmm.
matches where I'd be like, "What was this the one where the guy?" Because in the top eights, a lot of these matches go to 5 games, right? And
Hmm.
so what ends up happening is you're like, "Was this the one that they mulliganed, or was that the previous one, like one
Yeah,
of
and
the
you're
other
like can't really
ones?"
remember, and you just
And
look
it
up and yeah,
says right
it's
there,
right
yeah.
there. Yeah, I all of that is good. They were really clicking a lot more. Like we've gone through the reason we're talking so much about the coverage. If you've listened to the podcast for a long time, we have gone through a lot of brutal coverage.
Yeah,
Like
it
during the
got
COVID
worse
era,
before it got better, for
yeah,
sure.
it
Like it
was
was
like
really bad for a
yeah,
while.
all the online stuff was pretty brutal. There was a lot of like disconnects or like there's a lot of things that would just
Or
happen, and
like
it was
lag
just
in the hand because you had like a
mm,
hand
mhm.
viewer overlaying someone else's stream, and so the card would get
Yeah.
played it would like leave their hand in the mini viewer before it got played
It
on the
was played in
side.
the other one. It was hard.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're all back in person and everything's just humming is
And they
amazing.
have their pairs now, they cycled through
Hmm.
different
Who they
commentator
figured out, but like
pairs and
we know the ones
found
that
the
everybody
chemistry.
likes. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is great.
Corey
It's
and
also
Ailey
mhm,
always together.
and Marshall and Paul,
Yeah.
which is funny because right now Marshall and Paul are doing limited resources together, so it also just
Oh,
Like,
right.
if
Because
anyone
Luis
listens to that
busy with
podcast,
his baby.
yeah, babies. He's got two.
Babies, of
They're
course.
twins. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think I was just very happy with all of the coverage, and so
It was good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also look a lot at coverage just because if I was part of any of this, I don't think of myself as a player. I think of myself more as like a coverage team member because I'm like, I am not good enough to be one of the players of the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
If I was possibly anything, I would be working on coverage. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Be like the color commentator.
I don't consider myself a color commentator. I consider myself a play by play.
Okay.
Where I'd be like, this is the thing that's happening right now. No
Yeah,
one
oh,
can
I
tell
see.
me that that's wrong. I am just
Like,
saying
actually,
what's
Zach,
happening.
that's not that card. It's a different
That's not
one.
that card at all.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, as far as the metagame went, like the biggest decks that were part of the tournament were Gruul Mice, Esper Pixie, and Domain Overlords. In like 18.9%, 16.6, and 15.2 respectively. Gruul Mice just still dominating. That deck
Yeah.
very popular and really hard to play. Many different people were talking about how they decided they didn't want to play Gruul Mice because they were just there's so many different decisions to make because all your cards are cheap and there's if you just make one wrong mistake and miss a point of damage, the game is just over and you just lose. Which I agree with. That deck's really hard to play.
Yeah. That's something we've been saying in aggro for a while is like, yeah, there's fewer decisions to make and few options per decision in general, but
Hmm.
each wrong decision you make is so costly that I think
Hmm.
is the thing that people just tie hard to play with number of decisions, but
Hmm.
it's just like actually it's not necessarily that one to one. Like sure, some decks you make 40 decisions, but each decision has four options and choosing any three of them is probably fine. But
As
there's
long as you don't
one,
do
like
that
you don't
one that's
choose the
bad, yeah.
terrible one. Yeah.
Hmm.
And sometimes I play those decks and I'm like, I think I found the only path to losing here. Like I took the
Hmm.
bad decision there and then the bad one
And
there and then the bad one there and like ended up losing the game. Um, but yeah, the Gruul deck has both. It has
Mhm.
really important decisions that each have a lot of permutations. Like you could play every turn wildly differently, and usually there's like one right answer that will win you the game. So it's the
Mhm.
opposite. You have to find like the exact
The
sequence
right
of
one.
correct plays to
Because
deal
the
exactly 20 damage at the end. You know, some
mhm.
games you steamroll your opponents. It's magic
Of
that
course. Well,
still
that's also why you
happens, but
you choose that deck, right?
right.
It's because you hope to coin flip that. But the same thing was kind of being said about Esper Pixie as well, which has been a menace on standard players for a while now.
Yeah.
And who knew that Nurturing Pixie was going to be such a piece of shit and so annoying when that set came out? Because it was like close to an unplayable card in draft that like
Yeah.
anyways.
It was, yeah,
And
I
just
didn't have
like
it on my
had
bingo card, that's for sure.
yeah, basically didn't do anything until Duskmorn came out. Um, but anyway, that is another deck that there's a lot of people that were saying like, man, this deck is really strong, but I don't think I can mentally play this deck and mirror matches of this deck for hours and hours
For
in the day.
15 rounds or
Yeah,
whatever.
I'm just gonna get so burned out. I have to play something else, and
And that's
it
real
that's
in these long
that's
tournaments.
real.
It's a real consideration. Like play
Yeah.
something that is a little less taxing on your mental load. Although I don't actually think there was such an option in current standard. None of these decks are straightforward.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Pixie is one of those cards that irritates the hell out of me. The Pixie deck, I don't know why, I
Hmm.
just hate it. But then I look back and I actually don't lose to it that much. I just like really hate it.
Hate
Like
playing
it just
against it.
annoys me when they make me discard with the same
You're
fucking
like, oh
like
god damn it.
enchantment for the fourth time. But then I
Yeah.
still end up just like having a 4/4 and kind of whooping their ass with it. So
Yeah.
it's like it's just one of those decks that you feel like you hate it and you lose to a lot, but then it's like, oh, but they maybe they could have sequenced it better, but it's such a difficult deck to pilot that I don't end up losing to it all that often. And I think
Yeah.
it didn't have a great win rate in this tournament either.
Yeah, it did not. And that's kind of a good segue to like what the top eight was and what we were looking at.
Yeah.
We were looking at like three Domain Overlords decks. We have Mono Green, we have Gruul Leyline, we have Gruul Mice, and Golgari Graveyard. Very exciting. And Jeskai Oculus. So a fairly like diverse. As long as you're saying that like mono red, Gruul Leyline and Gruul Mice are not really the same deck. They're flavors of the same thing, but they are still technically different. It feels fairly diverse as far as like all the things that you're naming. It's not just like six domain overlords and then two different ones, which is nice. Towards the end of the tournament, yes, it does kind of end up being Overlord mirrors, and then the final match was an Overlord mirror because they just happened to be the strongest. And I also hate that deck, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I,
It's
I
one of
was
those
also
things.
uninterested in watching the end. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I just don't want to watch a domain mirror. That sounds long and
Hmm.
boring. Um, it's I don't dislike playing against domain that much. I never have. I find it relatively interesting. The problem is when it becomes the best deck in the format and the boogeyman, it warps the metagame so much. And I don't want
Hmm.
to only play against that, like,
Hmm.
and that's what tends to happen when this deck does well, is like now I have to play against it 50% of the time on Arena or like higher, it feels like. And it's
Yeah,
like I don't
especially
mind playing
now.
against Domain, but I don't want to do it every game because it's
Hmm.
it's so one-dimensional. It's like, can you kill them before they do their
Before they.
thing? Yes, no, maybe.
Hmm.
And you get some tight matches that way, but like sometimes I want to be on the back foot as well and
Hmm.
like having to stabilize, I just want different experiences. And so I was really hoping this would not happen. Exactly this, that
Hmm.
the three domain overlords decks were like the top three. Um, but what can you do? I mean, the deck is outrageously strong. And the other part of it
Hmm.
is I like to brew decks, and getting pummeled by domain overlords just doesn't tell me that much about how my current list.
It's
Like,
true.
it's not optimal. I know that. I just want to find out like which cards kind of hum and like do my thing. And then it's just like, oh yeah, well, you just ramped into a sunfall and ripped everything off my board before I got to even see what it does. And like,
Hmm.
just this is not great
Yeah.
testing.
Because they're all, yeah, they're not picking apart your board the like necessarily the same way that you're used to, or you're not like there isn't as much of a back and forth. It's just kind of like you're trying to make a big wave before their bigger one comes and crushes you, essentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
So for this pro tour, I jumped in. I saw this bracket. And then we jumped right into game one, and I was cheering for Ian Robb. And
Mhm.
I was like, I want Ian Robb to win this whole thing because I know he's not playing Hazaret,
I was going
but
to bring that up. Okay, so Ian Robb is the mono red aggro player, and
yeah,
Ian Robb is also not playing any of the red cards we said that we wanted to see in the tournament last week.
yeah,
Both you had said Hazaret, and I was talking about the Bastronaut,
right.
and
But to
no
be fair,
start
those
your
are like
end.
a package. You
It's
you
true.
play both, I think.
And Ian Robb was just playing the tried and true aggro
Mice
mice
stuff.
with,
It's like
yeah,
Gruul mice without the green.
yeah, without
Um,
the card advantage,
yeah.
basically.
Well, you still have the mouse that when it gets targeted,
Yeah, sure, 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 sure. I think I just like Druid so much more as far as like card advantage than
it
the.
didn't look great on camera in this top eight. It looked like
Mhm,
Gruul without the card advantage, kind of.
mhm. And
And
well,
because
that's
he was
also
constantly just like, if I draw the right card,
mhm,
I'm gonna win. And then it's like land,
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 land.
land.
Yeah, and that's how
Um,
I've always felt about that deck. So, but I'm also
yeah,
not Ian Robb, so like I'm not going to pretend like I'm any good. But
yeah, right. I'm sure Ian is getting to 20 a lot of the time when you and I would be like, oh, I need to draw something to do the last two.
mhm. It's like
Uh,
oh, or like Ian's getting to like 22 because something happened where they gained life, where I'm
right.
just scrambling trying
And
to
it's
get
like
to
they
20.
gained a life. I can't beat
Oh
that.
God, the game's
My deck is
over.
designed to do 20.
Yeah, that's all I could do. All my lines hit 20. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was pulling for Ian to win the whole thing with mono red because I was like, at least that's tangential to what I said was going to win this tournament
Hmm.
or was
Yeah.
hoping to win this tournament. Um, he lost.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Immediately.
He was playing against Matt Nass, so the astute listener will know that he lost.
Hmm.
And then I watched Kenta on Jeskai
Hmm.
Oculus against Domain Overlords. And I was like, well, now I want Kenta to win the whole thing because he's playing Inti. And I love that
Hmm.
card. And so,
Yeah.
okay, we got to root for the Inti deck,
I do love the Oculus Inti thing. That's a lot of fun. All those
right?
Oculus decks looks a lot cooler when they
Yeah.
like are doing this other type of, hey, we have a bunch of threats that just like discard cards and happen to do this thing, instead of like, if my graveyard's gone, I can't play the game anymore. It's not like one of
Yeah.
those decks anymore. So
That
I
match
do.
was an eye opener for me, though. It's cool. I agree.
Hmm.
It was an eye opener for me, though, because he did the like turn two play into turn three Oculus thing almost every game and still just got wiped by Domain Overlords. Like it wasn't close. And so like if your deck is doing the thing,
The
the nut
thing.
draw thing,
Hmm.
and just gets smoked by the best deck regardless, I don't think you can play this. Like
Hmm.
not right now. Not if everyone's playing Domain Overlords, or you got to figure it out. You got to figure out the tech that beats them
To
because
get it out.
Kenta was humming. He had some nice draws, and he would rebuild two, three times after wipes, and it just didn't matter. It just didn't even come close to being enough.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I love this deck and I love what it's doing, but the fact that it just gets stomped anyways when it does it, it feels like a deck I build. That's what my decks
Hmm.
do. They like it takes a
I
lot of
do
moving
that.
parts and they finally come together and I still lose anyways. It's like
Yeah.
that wasn't worth it. Um, so, anyways, now my Kenta, who I was cheering for, out. Come up against what was next? This was Lucas, I think. It's Christopher was next. I was like, well, yeah, no more. I'm sick of domain. I don't want three domains, so I'm going to cheer for Lucas here. Lucas out. And
Hmm.
then Zevin against Yuchen. I was like, well, you got to take Zevin here on the friggin' Golgari graveyard deck. Rooting for
Yeah.
him. And then Yuchen beats him on Gruul Mice. So I was like,
Hmm.
then I wanted Yuchen to win because I was like, I just don't want domain overlords. And then he got knocked out, and I didn't
And it's like
watch the other match. So I was like, you know what? Literally every match I watched in this top eight, the player that I wanted to
the
win did not win.
lost. Yeah.
And I watched five matches. I went
It's
0 for
brutal.
5.
It's so brutal. I was like tuning in at certain points, watching Zevin because I had watched Zevin throughout the tournament. Zevin also went 6-0 in draft. It was also Zevin's first pro tour. So this is like Zevin Faust, first pro tour, uh,
Top
like
8.
3-0 the
Wow.
draft on day one, like does really well, makes it to day two, 3-0's that draft, gets into the top eight. What a fucking dream, buddy,
Yeah, no
right?
kidding.
Unlike this Golgari graveyard, like Souls of the Lost deck that like looks like a lot of fun. I actually took it out for a spin because it was the one I was like, that's something that looks fun and cool. And it was, it's so Zevin, I think the other thing of this tournament, like Matt Nass winning, awesome. But Zevin Faust going to his first pro tour, getting to top eight is the dream, right?
Yeah.
Like, even though he gets knocked out in the first round, that is the dream. Like being like, oh, I was just wanting to come hang out with my friends. I happened to win an invite from a regional championship. I'm probably just going to scrub out on the first day, hang out and play whatever games
Right.
after
That's
that,
the
join events.
expectation. Yeah.
Top eights. And now you're like, well, okay, maybe I'm a professional Magic player now.
I think
Like,
this random
holy
deck
shit.
that like
Yeah. Like
just
nobody plays. He
I
just,
think one other person was on it.
it was like his buddy. Yeah. They brought
Yeah.
it together, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're just like, okay.
No one else on their team brought it, but those two guys did, and both did well, by the way.
Yeah. It was just, this is what Magic is about. This is what, it's like, it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, they're younger guys, but like, I would also like to just throw out like Lucas DeChow. Like he has been on a tear as well.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
doing super well, and he's like I don't know how old he is, but he's older than we are.
Hmm.
So it's just nice to see people from all different ages performing really well in this type of like game and tournament
I
because
have
it
liked that about recent like Pro
magic,
Tour thing.
right?
It's like the top eight is always like a healthy mix of 40-year-olds and 20-year
Yeah.
olds, you know?
And like obviously 40-year-olds and when they get to 50, there's usually the time suck is what's hard is that like you just can't put in as much time as you want because of a bunch of different obligations. But
Right.
it isn't the same kind of physical thing as like football or like another physical sport where it's like, oh, when you're 30, you're an old man and you're dead, you know? And I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
I don't want to feel like I'm dead, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just not it's not
Nice to be able to
cool.
root for the old guys, you
Yeah,
know?
you're like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, go for it. Like, you can win. And we've seen players that are in their 40s and 50s win these types of things. So, anyway,
Yeah.
that was just a random tangent, but I
Lucas
love
was
it.
the name when I saw the bracket. I was like, okay, phew. I was worried there wasn't going to be someone who's been just in every top eight
Hmm.
because that's recently it's been like, Javier's always there or
Hmm.
just outside. Simon Nielsen's always there.
Really close.
And it's like we needed that one name that like is
That's
always
true.
there. And I guess that's
Hmm.
Lucas now.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Well, the beginning, Lucas might be on a tear for like player of the year. It possible.
Well, I
Like,
think
I don't.
Kenta Harane is always near the top. I don't
That's
know if
true. That's
he's always
true.
in the top
Kenta
eight,
is
but
also as well.
yeah.
Um, as someone who I've wanted to pick or have picked for different, I don't know, fantasy purposes in the past. But anyway, really, really great pro tour. I'm excited for the rest of them. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Obviously, we talked a lot more than I was kind of expecting, but
Same. Yeah.
I do want to talk about draft. Um, and I want to leave our draft like talk from the pro tour into that.
Yeah.
But talking about the first person that we were watching in the Pro Tour draft was Javier Dominguez, who is our current world champion.
Yes.
Um, and his draft on day one was awful. It was brutal.
Zach, this made
Like,
me so happy. This was one of the things that I love about watching Pro Magic is like those types of awful drafts happen to me
mhm,
and seeing it happen to the literal world champion, like probably the best player in the world, is always like, oh, okay. Other people, this happens to other people too, because
yeah.
you get that feeling in draft, especially when you're just on arena. You're always playing against these decks that seem like hyper optimized, and you're like, does no one else ever just end up with the like, I was in a bunch of different colors and then I didn't see the right card colors at the right time, and I got pulled a few different ways and I ended up with garbage. Does that not happen to other people? And now it's like, yes, not only does it happen to other
Yep.
people, it can happen to Javier. Now I'm
Literally
sure it
the best
happens
player.
way less often to him than it does to me, but I'm sure.
Yes.
But
Also,
uh,
drafting at the Pro Tour can be a lot different. Like, I don't know.
yeah, it's in
But
pod and everyone knows what they're doing, and
mhm,
like, yeah.
all that
Um,
stuff. But
but
Javier
yes, it was a
Dominguez,
train wreck. It was the
it
type of
was
shit where I would come out of it and be like, oh boy, do I just drop this and join again? No, I gotta play it. I gotta play it.
it like I've had some really bad. It reminded me of one of the train wrecks where I literally like had streamed it. It was terrible, and I decided not to make a video of it. Basically, that was like
Right.
what where I'm like, this is two different decks. It's so horrible. I can't even. It's not even fun to watch. And to be fair, watching his deck was not fun. Like it was brutal.
Yeah.
Basically, so he had drafted Ride's End, pack one, pick one. That was like
It's a good
his
choice.
first pick. That's
It's
it.
fine.
It's like the best white common, sure.
It's the
Um,
worst, the best common and the worst
in the worst
color.
color. And some things were going on, and he was kind of fluttering between if he was going to be white, red, like kind of vehicle stuff, or if he wanted to kind of it. There was a lot of hey, the discard deck is open, the blue red discard deck is open,
Yeah.
and he was fluttering back and forth between those kinds of picks. And then there were certain picks that were like, oh, he's really thinking about it, like some
Right.
of these blue cards he's taking or some of these cycling cards, it's just like, oh, this is very aggressive that he's taking these types of things. And in the end, he ended up playing this like Jeskai version of
Ugh.
kind of both, basically. And he ended up getting like the mythic white trip, like the four white giant vehicle that you can
Right.
cycle, but
You can
also is
cycle,
like a
yeah.
7/7 flying for striking, life linking thing
Yeah.
with push the limit, which brings all your vehicles back from the graveyard to the battlefield.
You gotta run it at that point when your deck's that weak. You're
Essentially,
like, we gotta try for this
we just
combo.
gotta hope. We gotta hope. But yeah, he got knocked out in the. I mean, not knocked out, but his first match was against someone who was at their first pro tour, and he lost.
Yeah,
But anyway, it was one of those. I completely agree with you, and it's one of the best things about Magic and the mana system in general, because like on a draft level, that is showing that like, hey, the things that happen to you and the variance that happen when you're drafting happens to everyone, like the world champion. The mana system is exactly the same way, where it's like you get mana screwed or mana flooded. That happens. It's part of the game. It also happens to the world champion, the best player in the world. Like that's what makes the game good, because every once in a while you can show up to your first pro tour, be matched up against the literal world champion, and steamroll them and be like, wait, I might be good at this game, and
yeah,
like that is never going to happen if you have like a dunk contest against like LeBron James. Like it just doesn't happen, right? Like,
yeah. The thing I was thinking about is chess. Like, you're not gonna
right.
sit down against a grandmaster and win one in a. You're not even one in
You,
1,000 games. You're
no,
gonna lose every
you're going to
single
lose
time.
every single one.
Yeah. Whereas Magic, it's like you'll probably win like 30, 40% of those bitches. Like,
Yeah. But like that's pretty good compared to
yeah.
like 1%. Like it's just that's great. So super cool to see that. But I just getting into like just draft talk in general. Um, this is technically our draft episode, but I did want to talk about the Pro Tour because it is important, and I want more people to be excited about the Pro Tour, as I am, and it's just sweet. But I had mentioned kind of before, Zevin was getting into the top eight by 6-0ing all the
Yeah.
drafts. And that is the way that us newbies, if we ever try to get into the Pro Tour, can find ourselves into the top eight. Is that getting a good start is really, really important. And so Zevin is a perfect example of, hey, just be amazing at draft and also good. I mean, he built a deck for standard and happened to just crush.
Yeah.
But you obviously need a lot of luck and all these other things, but don't forget about draft. Draft is really important in these types of tournaments, and I'm happy that they are really, really big parts of these. All right, Jeff, Aetherdrift draft. How do we feel about it? What's going on? What are the things? What's the stuff?
So we talked last week a little bit about it. Um, Green is the best color. There was
Hmm.
no surprise to see that all the pros agree with that. That was not a shock at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, and I think it's also kind of clear that like green is the best color to an extent that sometimes it's correct to force it. Like I think some teams were
Hmm.
on that game plan that you force green. It's so good that I think you can have half the table be green,
Hmm.
and that's kind of the limit. That's like when does it
Four
get
players, but not five,
non-beneficial?
right?
Yeah, like I think you're hoping for three. Hoping
Hmm.
for less than that is crazy. It's not going to happen. So you're hoping there's three. You're okay if there's four, and you don't want there to be five, which is
Hmm.
fucked. That's insane. Like
Hmm.
normally, if you're in a color, you're like, I hope that there's only one other guy or one other
Yeah.
drafter that's in that color. To say like, I'm hoping there's two, right? Like, and if there's three, I guess that's okay. Other drafters is is crazy, but that's where we're at. And I think
Hmm.
my concerns that this is not going to be self-correcting were uh like fanned by the pro watching the pro tour, where it's just like everyone knows green is the best, and it
Hmm.
does seem like the pros think that half the table can be in green.
Yeah. I will say that of the 3-0 like players from day one, a good chunk of them were all playing green decks, makes sense. But like the the most of one archetype, let's say that. So of all the different archetypes you could be,
Yeah.
all the green ones or whatever, the deck that actually had the most, like the single archetype that had the most 3 and O's was blue red.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say I think thank God for blue red in a way that the
yeah,
well-built blue red deck is the only thing that can beat the green decks, basically.
and I think a lot of that is not only because there's a lot of pressure on green decks and people forcing green, but also the blue red deck is so incestuous that like there are so many. Sorry, I don't know if that's the right word, but there's so many cards in the blue red deck that want to work with each other that they don't
Yeah,
work with other stuff. So
right.
like if you're playing red green, you're not really interested in the red cards that go in the blue red deck. You only want the cards that go in like that are either really good red cards or that go into the red green deck.
Right.
And the blue red strategy in general just wants to be together. And so it's often overlooked and passed throughout the whole draft. And that is part of why Javier found himself in this weird, am I Boros, am I blue red? Because blue red's just coming to me because nobody wants it.
But
Um,
also he saw it as an out, I think. Like you don't want to be Boros, right?
you really don't want to be
You don't want to
Boros.
be Boros. And so when he saw, hey, some cards might be showing up for the blue red deck, which if it comes together is
Hmm.
one of the best decks in the format,
Yeah.
he's probably thinking it's worth it to try to pivot here, take these blue red cards on the off chance that that lane does open up, and then I don't have to, instead of playing the worst deck in the format, I get to play one of the, like, assuming that it does come together, one of the
Hmm.
better decks. Um, I think that's kind of where his mind was too, was like, this is worth taking a chance on because at the
Totally.
moment, I have a Boros deck and not even one that's good for a Boros deck, right?
Hmm.
Like, this
Hmm.
is about the worst place you can find yourself in this format is a mediocre Boros deck.
Hmm. Which is
Um,
hard. Like it's hard. It's a hard place to be. Your first pack is I take a common of a color I don't want to be touch at all,
oh
and
man, his packs were tough, man.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to say he drafted perfectly or anything, but there were no obvious mistakes. I don't think that he made. It's just like these
it's
were some.
hard.
That was a tough seat he was in.
Really tough stuff. Go back and watch that draft if you ever need some. I don't know feelings of wow. Drafting's hard. Like yes, it is very hard.
Yeah.
Um,
But the
and
thing with the red blue deck is doesn't always come together. So you'll see the actual win rate of blue red is not that high. Um,
yes, but as
but it
far as
makes sense that when decks do 3-0, they
mhm.
a large percentage of them will be that blue red did come together.
Mhm, exactly. Um, so when we're talking about these different percentages, we're talking about 17 lands data. So this is not the Pro Tour. These are some of the best players that are playing Arena because the most enfranchised have 17 lands, which is a website. It is part of their computer and it tracks all their data and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, people that are not as enfranchised will not have this data going to this website. So um, take that with whatever you think, but this is how most everyone talks about draft these days. But starting at the top, we have 4 decks that kind of just like are there. Jeff did a perfect job of talking about this last week. All the green ones.
The green decks, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all to see this, and this is even in the order that I thought, which
Hmm.
is like Sultai decks are the best, and then the red and green white are a touch below that, but still
Hmm.
better than all the other decks. This is exactly what I thought it would look like. I did go over to 17 lands and look because I think last week I said green blue is the deck I want to be in the most. I'm not sure if black green is the best deck.
Hmm.
Or no, sorry, the other way around. I said
Yeah.
green
Green
blue, I
black.
think is the best deck. Green black is the deck I want to be in the most because I have more of a bias for those colors.
Hmm.
But I'm actually not sure which one was better. But if I, gun to my head, I would have picked green blue. Here they showing to this accuracy, they have the same win rate, but I actually did the math on the wins and losses, and green blue is slightly higher win rate. So green blue
Hmm.
is actually, I think it's like 0.0001 higher win rate than green black. So, you know, it's the same essentially. Like
It is
the
basically the
decks are
same.
both tied for first, but green blue just it did slightly eke it out. And
Yeah,
so
but I think also a personal preference is that like I do the blue commons I like a little bit more than some of the black ones as far as like maybe that's not what I'm trying to say. Maybe it's just like some of the blue cards tend to flow a little bit more and I like that strategy a little bit more and the green blue deck I see more often and I want to be a part of.
yeah.
And so I'm
I
more
think
used to it, I guess.
what I like about green blue is that the uncommons, or what I would typically like, are that the signpost uncommons are cheaper. Yeah, there's a 2 drop and a
Yes.
3 drop
Hmm.
versus they're quite expensive for green black. But in this set, I
Very.
think that's a little less like it has a lower
Hmm.
impact on the win rates than it normally would because the set's slow enough that these like
Exactly.
big dirtily value engines do end up being like just as good as the cheap efficient value engines in some
Hmm.
sense. But these decks are neck
I
and
mean,
neck. They're both they're basically
both.
the best deck in the format
Hmm.
is Sultai but not Dimir. That's what do you think?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, you do kind of those types of things. Thundering Broodwagon, which is the Golgari vehicle that destroys something with mana value 4 or less, is the best gold uncommon at the moment, as
Hmm.
according to 17 lands. That is not one of the cards that me and Jeff picked during our pregame
I
episode.
thought it was too expensive. I liked it.
I thought it was too expensive and too color restrictive, and the only way you could really use it was reanimating it. People do they play it, it dies,
Oh, yeah.
then they reanimate it, so it ends up being very good.
Yep.
But it is very strong. Jeff did a very good job. He has won as far as the gold signposts and commons go because he picked the Simic deck, saying that that was going to be the best. I had overestimated how good white was going to be. I picked Loggerin, which is doing really bad numbers. However, funny enough,
Is
the
that the worst
other,
one?
no, it's not the worst one.
Oh, the
Um,
black white one. Maybe is that the worst one? Hold on.
uh, the
Oh, the red white one, of
red white
course.
one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
red
course.
white, and then black white are the worst, with also blue black behind. Logren's kind of like in the middle as far as like fine, but I will say that I thought white green was going to be one of the best colors or the best color, and the other white green uncommon happens to be above Jeff's pick of the
Yes.
Skyscraper Seeker, which is Veteran Beast Rider, which is the 3 mana 4/1 that untaps your stuff and pumps your team.
Yeah.
I did not think that that card would be performing as well. I don't know if it's just because people are only putting it in decks with lots of creatures or what it is, but I think on raw power level today I played. I think I had a run of like turn one Scurryfoot, turn two Sky Serpent, turn three Aether Ranger, and my opponent scooped after that turn of just they were like, nope, I'm not playing this game. That's disgusting, and I hate it. And I was like,
Yeah.
that is a gross curve.
Yeah.
So I get it.
You can curve out on people in this format. It's
You
just
can, even though those cards represent like the rest of the game is going to be hard for you. You're not going to die right now, but it's going to,
right.
I'm representing a really tough road, and my opponent decided that on turn four, you know what, fuck it, I'm done. And I was
I
like,
didn't have it in them.
really? I was
Yeah.
like, really? Is this good enough? Okay, that doesn't. I wouldn't have scooped to that, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you don't know what's in their hand, I guess. Maybe they
Of
just had
course, but they don't know what's in
garbage.
my hand. I could have garbage too. Um, but anyway, uh, going down the line, so we have both of those decks obviously very high. I guess we could easily just talk about the top commons, which in blue the top commons are Flood, the Engine, Spectral Interference, and Bounce Off. Which Jeff, I think you picked Flood the Engine, right?
I picked Flood the Engine, and for me, it was actually between Flood the Engine and Spectral Interference. So I like this.
Hmm.
You picked Bounce Off,
And
right?
I picked Bounce Off, yeah.
And
So
that's like 0.1% behind Spectral Interference. So it's
yeah.
essentially tied.
essentially tied, looking at both of those. But the most interesting one, and I think everyone kind of knows this, but below that are some of the creatures, which is Skystreak Engineer, Nimblethopterist, and Keen Buccaneer. But Skystreak Engineer, amazing. 2 mana, 1/3 flyer, ends up being awesome in a format where that's like, hey, slow the fuck down. Okay, calm down. Hey, all you white 2 mana 2/2s that have first strike on your turn, go die.
Yeah.
This is the reason why you're not good. And yeah, we'll exhaust later. We'll become a 3/5 and crack in the air. Ends up just being a nice little bread and butter thing. Um,
Yeah. I
but
think, when I remember looking through the commons and thinking, oh, there's a lot of like decent 1/3s
mhm,
in this format. And so kind of kicking myself for still choosing Leonin Surveyor as the best white common when I remember like choosing because I did white first and I was like Leonin Surveyor.
mhm.
That I love that common. That looks great. And then after that, going through the set, I was like, wow, there's a lot of 1/3s in this set that like you actively want to play. And I never clicked that maybe I should go back and change that 2/2 I picked as not being the best. But
So I had thought about that, but I was thinking that the 1/3s were not cards you actually wanted to play.
really,
Though
you didn't
to
like Skystreak Engineer when you were reading
I
it the first
I
time?
liked Skystreak Engineer a little bit, but I also thought that Exhaust was too expensive at the time when we
Okay.
first had done stuff.
If it was like a much faster format, I guess.
And so it was a racing format. I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was. Oh, this is just 2 mana 1/3 that blocks but can never be a 3/5. Basically, I was like, you're just
Mm,
never gonna have enough time to do this. It's just not gonna happen. And that was my
right.
entire mindset for all of it. So yeah, Wreckage Wickerfolk is the second best black uncommon, right underneath Engine Rat, which is the most
Yeah.
interesting one to me. But Grim Bauble is third, which is the one I picked, and you picked Spin Out, which is fourth. But they're both very, very close to each other. And
They're
I,
all pretty close. That's all within 0.5%, basically.
yeah. And the other one that's in that grouping of five is Pactol Terror. So it goes Rat, Wickerfolk, Bauble, Spin Out, Terror.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so interesting about Engine Rat is that it feels like its strength is like it's a 1 mana 1/1 death touch that drains your opponent in the end game, which is really important and does kill people. But I always thought this card was really strong because it helped you like get to max speed.
Right.
That's what it feels like it's being used for the most in my experience. But like these are not max speed colors necessarily, but every once in a while you need something. But the times that I'm like, oh god, this stupid engine rat is when they're doing a max speed deck, not this stuff. So maybe it's just helpful. It's like it's helpful in the max speed decks, but it's also helpful in the decks that you want to go long and you just have a mana sink to like drain them to death. And so that's why Engine Rat is so high because it just fits. It's just like, hey, you're playing black. Please play Engine Rat because it will do two different things for you. Is that what it is?
Exactly. Yeah. Like 1/1 death touches are good. They are better in slow formats because this thing will threaten to trade off with a
Hmm.
good creature, right? Like Hazard of the Dunes.
Yes.
Like it holds back good cards. This set also lends itself towards ground stalls.
Hmm.
Like I remember the first like week of playing this set, I was like, I'm always just in a board stall. It felt a bit Cons of Tarkiri in that way.
Hmm.
And this card is great in board stalls. It
Hmm.
holds back massive creatures and gives you a way
Kill them.
to
Yeah.
still win, even though you can't get through. And so Engine Rat has been super high for me. The one that I like seeing, I think like Pactol Terror has just been like climbing up my ranks, and to see it up there, basically tied with, well, it is tied with Spin Out. It's like I've kind of been taking it that high. I think I still don't take Grim Bauble as high as I should. I wouldn't have had it as the third best, but the
Hmm.
Wicker folk also have noticed this card is just very nice to have.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Wicker Folk, Grimbauble, and Pact Terror all love each other, obviously. So,
right, that's the thing. Yeah, I think that's what makes Pactol Terra good is like
mhm.
a lot of the good black commons are artifacts. So
Yes,
it just like even if you don't have to commit to the start your engines
artifact
thing
thing.
to be
Hmm.
interested in playing this, and a 3/4 is just a nice blocker.
Hmm.
And so it's just been a nice card I've found. I like that you get the ping right away too. I didn't realize that when I first read it because I think I was just
Me
like,
neither.
it's whenever another thing comes in. That's
I
how
was
it
like,
always
got
works.
4 mana for this. Like, I was coming off of Duskmourn that was like, we had a 2 mana 2/2 that did this for enchantments.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay, I have to pay twice as much mana. But it's like, no, a 3/4 is actually really good as far as blocking goes. And you're padding your life total, you're slowly killing them. Um, if you play Haunt the Network, like this card is amazing with that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I've literally played against opponents who like didn't do anything. Like it's slow enough format where it's like I'm trying to build my board and get all my pieces together, and then my opponent just goes turn 4, Pact Terror, turn 5, Pact Terror. I kill one.
Ooh.
Turn 6, Pact Terror. I'm just like, what? Did you draft other cards?
Yeah.
Like, what is
And who's
happening?
passing you all of these?
And I'm already just like my life is like not as high as I would like. I don't understand what's happening. I
You know
thought that I was
why?
doing totally fine. But and then I'm just like, you're literally playing a 4 drop over and over again, and I'm just losing. Like, what
Does
the
that
fuck?
remind you of anything? This is Siege Rhino. That's the Rhino train. This
Just
card
like
is Siege
Rhino, Rhino,
Rhino. There it
Rhino.
is. Yeah. And that's how
Well,
you
I'm
would lose in those Abzan games. Just like
it's just like
Rhino, Rhino, Rhino. It's like, oh
uh
fuck. Like that already trained me for 9 and I have to deal with a bunch of 4 or 5 tramplers. Like,
yeah. That almost kind of feels like the Pixie deck where they're just playing the Hopeless Nightmare over and over and over again. That's just
yeah.
like making you lose life. Oh
Yeah.
God.
But black has a lot. So this is why black is the second best color in my opinion. It has a lot
Hmm.
of really strong commons, and
Hmm.
so it's just so deep. Um, and another thing I wanted to bring up is that I said last time that my I didn't pick it, but I did say my favorite Surveyor was Mutant Surveyor,
It's true.
and it's the only one that's playable according to these win rates. So all the other ones suck,
Well, Jeff.
and this one's fine. I thought they were all kind of good, and this one was like quite good.
Hmm.
No, they all suck, and this one sucks less, but I'll take it.
My order went like white's the best, blue's the second best, then red, black, green. Turns out black's the best,
Yeah.
green's the second
Green's
best,
the second. I never would have
and
picked
then it's
that.
like red, blue, white.
How
White's
is
the
the blue
worst.
one? How is that like? How's the blue one so bad? But
I
anyways,
don't know.
I have not
Anyway,
been taking Glitch Ghost Surveyor as though it's essentially the worst blue common. I've been taking it much
you
more
you
highly.
should don't pick it up early because it'll just come. It'll fall in your lap. People
Now
will
I
just
know
give it to
that,
you.
yeah. But I've
No, no,
been like,
like I'm ending packs where it's like someone just passing me glitch. Oh, great, okay. So a push is a glitch ghost surveyor. Seriously?
come on,
Wow.
it's not that bad.
What world do we live in?
It's gonna be better than like Guidelight Optimizer, right? That's the card that
No.
everyone else thinks is good,
Mm-mm.
and I've always thought was terrible, and so I've just never been taking that one. But
Yeah, until they. I literally was playing against Guidelight Optimizer the other day, where I guess to be fair, that wasn't the card that was really winning the game. But being able to ramp into a bunch of artifact stuff that was blocking me from doing things, and it was also helping them have mana to. They literally milled me out of the game. They used the stupid monument thing.
jeez,
Like
nice.
I was
Well, I
doing.
mean, you lost the monument.
I did lose to the monument, but they were like. It was in a situation where they were like stuck on lands, but the guide light was the reason that they could pay for all the stuff that they were doing. And I was
Gotcha.
just like, you're you were stuck on lands and you played a monument. I think I'm going to win this game for sure. But the guidelight optimizer is the only reason that you're not dead, and I hated it. So
Yeah.
I ended up just being like, that's the reason. It's like, oh, they need to draw land. No, guidelight optimizer always just lets them make me dead. I know
I
that it
think
was
it.
the monument. I know it was the monument, but
I think
I'm still.
Optimizer sucks. I think the reason partly though is that it's supposed to be good in the blue white deck, and the blue white deck sucks. So
You can also play it in blue black, but
yeah,
sure.
I think it's trying to do the like, hey, I can
Rampy.
help with artifacts ramp
Hmm.
or with exhaust. But the reality is like you really want the ramp card to ramp your board development, and so
Hmm.
you want to play this card in the artifact deck where
Yes.
you're ramping into big artifacts. So it's essentially a blue-white card because having slightly cheaper or like having this help pay exhaust abilities is nice, but you generally only want to play your exhaust abilities in the late game. You want to develop your board first, and so you
Totally.
tend to already
I,
have mana for it.
I will say that half of the optimizer's strength is that like transit mage is so strong that
Hmm.
it's like the sequence of turn two optimizer, turn three transit mage, turn four blue shell is like
Sure, yeah.
just happens, and you're like son of a bitch,
That's
or
why
turn.
that's why Optimizer is a C minus instead of like a
Mhm.
D plus.
Yes. So that is kind of where it fits in, is that sequence is what's
Yeah.
happening, and happens often enough that you're like,
But
all right,
also it's a 2/1 in a world of 1/3s. So I just
it's
don't like
true.
this card.
I agree. I don't
Fuck
take
this
it, and
card.
so I don't play
Stop
it.
taking it, Zach. It's terrible.
I said I don't take it, Jeff. Jeez.
I don't take it. I just lose to it, okay?
Yeah. God, that's how I play the game.
Yeah.
Jeff, we did say that this was going to be a shorter run through, but we're definitely not even
Oh yeah.
close.
We're not shortening it.
Red green and red white both tied at 56.5%. These Naya colors, except for red and white, are the next best colors,
Yeah.
which is perfect because we get to talk about those red cards and those white cards. Their comments are significantly worse.
Which is why
Though,
they're a tier below. And this order
yes.
again, like you've written it as red, green, and then green, white. They're about the same, but I think it's one of those red, green is better. Green, white has better uncommons. It has the
Hmm.
really good uncommon. And red, green has like lightning strike and sort of
Hmm.
better red commons. So
Yeah.
you probably are in a better, it's easier to pick up a good red, green deck, I'm guessing, than a good
Yes.
green,
The
white.
fact that you said lightning strike and not thunderhead gunner makes me really mad, but whatever.
This isn't the
Because
Thunderhead Gunner deck. Thunderhead
Thunderhead
Gunner is
Gunner,
fine in this deck. It's good.
Thunderhead Gunner goes into this deck though.
Of course,
Thunderhead
it goes
Gunner
in
goes
every deck.
in
Yeah.
every deck.
It
That's
goes
what
in
I'm saying.
every red deck. You're right. But
Yes.
this isn't the one where it's really nutty. This is the
No.
one where it's like
This
it's a
is the
good card.
one. It mitigate. It just does its normal block
It
everything.
yeah, it does what it says it does, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like just discarding lands to draw new cards for free in draft is good. It just is good.
Yeah.
And a it's the best red common, like like almost shoulders above lightning strike, which is really
It is.
unfortunate,
Yeah.
which you wouldn't really expect. But we talked about this card last time, and I still really like it. I still see it go super late in packs where like this is the last red card in the pack. I'm like, this card's
That's
left.
crazy. That's
It
insane.
just seems like, yes, as I'm saying again, like you don't need a ton of them in your deck. Really, one will
You want
do.
one.
Two
Yeah.
seems crazy, but one is so good. As instead of like, I would play a deck with three lightning strikes, right?
Oh, for sure.
So,
Yeah. I actually did. And I mentioned I played in the what's it, the win a box event.
oh, sure, sure, sure,
And I
sure.
had mediocre rares and stuff, but I had a ton of cheap, efficient red and black cards, including three lightning strikes. So I played like a hyper aggro deck.
And
Red black,
sealed.
like
That's
super
so,
aggro in
yeah.
Aetherdrift sealed. I had tons of one drops. I had three of the red common that I picked that spoiler is not one of the best
Oh,
commons.
Prowler, yeah.
Prow Catcher
Prow
Specialist.
Catcher.
But it was great in this deck. And I got five. I went to 5 wins. So I got
Oh,
my money back
that's
on that.
good.
But
That's 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 great.
When I saw my
Right?
rares, I was kind of like, "Oh no,
Oh
oh no, we're
no.
not gonna win this one." But the triple lightning strike was like, okay, I think I know what I need to do here.
I was gonna say triple lightning strike is so lucky. Most of the times when you do seals, you're like, okay, I have one siphon fuel. Okay, I guess I'll do that, and then what else do I do? I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's amazing. Literally behind lightning strike is galvanic blast, which is hilarious because that's a special guest card.
sure.
Which,
Yeah,
sure, okay, totally.
it's shock.
Yeah, literally like shock, but maybe better if you have more artifacts. And then crash and burn. So the ones you would could kind of guess, besides obviously Thunderhead Gunner really came in swift and strong into the draft
Yeah,
format. But this deck, like I think green red has been really interesting because the exhaust thing is obviously part of the deck. But being able to quickly kill your opponents with whatever you've got just kind of feels like the way that the deck goes. It does feel a little bit faster,
yeah,
and sitting back and trying to exhaust is more of the blue thing to do
right.
because of the uncommons let you. If you have a Aether Ranger, you make a bunch of little 1/1s, or like the Elvish Refueler feels like you get to do it a million times. Red green can have those same kind of combos where you have like Scurryfoot and Refueler and you're making elephants every single turn. But most of the time you just kind of kill them with red.
Yeah,
So you don't need to sit back as much.
I really do mostly think of this deck as like green plus lightning strike,
Hmm.
um, which just gives a little reach to the face kind of thing.
Yeah.
It I don't think I've ever actually played this deck. I've only played against it, so I don't know a ton about it. But that's what it seems like to me. Is I'm just playing against a really good green deck, and then I have to worry about going to three.
Hmm. That's true. Definitely. Absolutely. Um, And then as far as green white goes, Ride's End is the best white common with Broadcast Rambler and Voyage Quick Welder kind of being behind it, far behind it. And then a big, huge jump down to Collision Course, which is just like a D plus type card. And
Like, look at the number of cards comments the white has that are C minus or better. That's three,
it's three.
and two of them are C's. So it's not like it has three and they're all B's kind of thing.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah,
White is just horrendous.
it's bad.
It's so.
It's bad.
What have they done to my boy? It's so
Yeah,
sad. The thing I was hoping with mounts has not. It like kind of happens, and if you have the busted mount deck, that's great. But as far as me thinking that more of the format revolved around vehicles and mounts, it does, but it also mostly revolves around exhaust, I think, and being able to have big creatures. So
yeah,
like mounting and crewing your vehicles, important to it at a point, but exhausting your creatures ends up being kind of one of the best things you could do. And turns out that starting your engines is fine, but not amazing. So sad.
yeah.
We actually kind of jumped over the green comments just because they felt so obvious, and we kind of talked about them before. But the top five are Stampeding Scurryfoot, Migrating Ketrodon, Runover, Hazard of the Dunes, and Pothole Mole. We picked three of these five cards as the commons, the best ones. I think we did a pretty good job.
These were the cards I was looking at,
Hmm.
except I wasn't super considering migrating Ketrodon. I
Same.
noticed it and was like, sometimes this card actually does end up being the best common, their version
Hmm.
of this. But I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to pick it this time. So I was looking at, but I was looking at Run Over, Hazard of the Dunes, Pothole Mole, and Stampeding Scurryfoot as the cards that I liked in green. And that's when I was like, well, green is insane because it
Look at
has
all these
so many
cards.
these cards.
Yeah.
And to emphasize that point here, all five of those cards, we talked about how good Thunderhead Gunner is. all
Hmm.
five of those cards are over, like they're a whole jump better than Thunderhead Gunner.
Yeah.
But the best red common is still like a good chunk beneath the
All of the
fifth
green ones.
best green
Hmm.
common.
Yeah.
And it's actually, well, where does its win rate line up? There's actually there's eight green commons better than
Hmm.
Thunderhead Gunner,
Yeah.
which is the best red common.
Yeah, and those commons
Uh,
are Beast Rider Vanguard, Bestow Greatness, and Venom Sack Lagak. So green is head and shoulders so much better than a lot of the other colors. Like,
yeah. And blue too, by the way. There's seven
yes.
green commons better than the best blue common, which is
Hmm.
Flood the Engines.
Yeah. I still fall into blue all the time because I like all of those cards. And
I like
I
the
like
blue
them.
cards too. Seeing them like laid out like this is like, whoa, there's also six black commons that are better than every blue common. Um,
Which I don't fully agree with, but the
yeah,
numbers don't lie,
numbers don't
do they?
lie. Yeah.
Hmm. Um, but anyway, I kind of want to breeze through this a little bit because I don't want to take too much time. Ultimately, the thing is, green's huge. So if we're not playing green, what other decks can we play? We can
Black.
play, yeah, just hopefully get lucky.
It's
Um,
literally like the top four decks are green.
mhm,
Next, all the black decks.
yeah,
Then Jeskai at the bottom. Like
yes,
this is the most like
divisive,
structured.
yeah.
Yeah, like, and it's literally like the best green decks are the ones that also play black or blue.
Hmm.
And then it's just like it's very, very structured. The only weird one is like black red is better than blue black kind of
Hmm.
thing. But just in terms of like this is the order of the colors. It goes green, black, blue, red, white, and
Hmm.
then all the best decks follow that exactly where the best the best decks are all the green ones, then all the black ones, then blue red, and then the white decks. It's like-
Yeah. Yes, it's a bummer. White's usually my favorite color, so this is hard for me.
and white's usually good and limited though, so you
It's
gotta
true. It's true. So
like
maybe
we've had enough sets where Boros was one of the top decks. Like it's usually in the top three. It's fine for
fine.
it to be the absolute worst, but if it happens again, Wizards,
I'm
if
gonna
it
say
happens again.
this has got to be one of the first times, right? Is this not?
Also, I feel
If
like it happening in the vehicles set is not the right place. But
Yeah, because every commander player we know, we have one friend who has a vehicle deck, and it's Mardu, and the fact that this is what happened,
yeah,
like,
this is
oh,
not the set for like the Boros racing deck to be the worst.
mm-mm.
Like the racing set.
It's so funny. The set where Chandra left the green blue team to go to the to go to the Boros team
Well, good
because
job,
they're the
Chandra.
fastest and the best
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. As flavor wise, it's hilarious that they're on opposite ends
Yeah.
of the
Maybe they
spectrum.
did that on purpose.
No
Chandra's a dummy.
way. Yeah. She should have gone with her mom.
Yeah,
If it was on purpose, the white black deck would have been the best and that would have won. But
true.
no.
Yeah, it's
Um,
aggressively medium.
yeah. Anyway, as Jeff had said earlier, black, red, blue, black, and white, black are the next decks. They're not exactly tied, but they're all very close. It's
Essentially tied.
56.1%,
Yeah.
55.8, and 55.8. Um, and of these different decks, I think I've really just played I've played blue, black, and white, black a lot more
It's
than
so
red, black.
interesting because I've played a lot of red black
Hmm.
and some white black, but no Demir. I really like the like blood artist white black.
Embalmed Descendant, like, is
Yeah, that
so
card's fuck.
fun.
My opponent played two of those once against me, and I was like, like I can't kill anything because I'll
Yeah,
die.
it's like,
Like I literally had a
uh,
board wipe, and I was like, I think this will kill me. I think if I cast this, I lose the
if I
game.
cast this, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I just find that like red black decks for me have just not worked out ever. Like it's just what it's trying to do is just I don't know why, but like I've had so many 1-3 runs with red black that I'm like, you know what? Fuck
Just
that
off
color
it.
pair. I'm off it. No, it doesn't matter if I get a far fortune. I'm not playing that color pair. I'm just done. But I will play Esper stuff, and I am more
Gotcha.
interested in doing that. Though I haven't played like a white blue deck. It's usually blue black or white black. I've had more success with white black, I think. So it's interesting to see these numbers where I'm like, white black I feel is my favorite white deck because it actually comes together and does things.
Right.
Um, as opposed to if I try to play white green, I can't because green is never open.
I think there are certain cards in black red. Like the perfect example is the vehicle, the black red vehicle that
Yeah.
like is massive and tries to make creatures unblockable. Like that card stinks. It was in my hyper aggro sealed deck that I built because I was like,
Hmm.
this deck it actually makes sense for. But some cards are trying to sell you on black red being an aggro deck. It's not really what it is. It's just a you play the good black cards and like some and you like supplement it with lightning strikes and the other black red uncommon, which is quite good.
Oh, the
Um,
Thrill Seeker was amazing.
yeah, and so you have a lot of death touch, which is good against
Hmm.
green creatures. You have unconditional removal from your black
Hmm.
spells, which is good against the big green creatures. And so you are generally trying to get under the green decks a little bit, but it's not aggro. You're not trying to like curve out and like two drop,
Yeah.
three drop, four drop, and
Which
get them dead that way.
maybe is what I was kind of doing a little bit more of start your engines kind of type
Right.
deals.
It's sold as like start your engines
Hmm.
aggro, and I don't think that's actually how you want to play it. Like you want to be out there dirtling with your engine rats and your, you know, like
Okay. All
packed
right.
doll terrors and
I can see that a little bit more.
yeah.
That's a good call out because I've definitely been dying to. Anytime I try to build a deck that's like, hey, start your engines, whatever, I'm gonna die. I'm ready to
Just don't
die.
play start your engines.
Yeah.
Have it have
Don't
it in
build a
your
deck.
deck, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And
Um,
don't do what one of my opponents did, which was in like turn three, lightning strike my face to get to speed two. And I was just like, oh my God. That was just like, I don't know what is happening in your hand over there where that made sense. Like, you have this plan to get to max speed on turn four, and the only way to facilitate that is to lightning strike my face on turn two. But I'm just
that
like, just delay it a turn, man.
I will say that to me sounds like a player who's been playing mono red in standard and
Yeah.
is just used to that card going face and just is
Yeah.
expecting
They actually
it.
think it's lava spike, you know.
Yeah, yeah, basically. It's like, oh, this lava spike's so expensive.
Yeah.
Whatever. Um,
Anyways, upstairs it goes. Might as well.
yeah. Or
Yeah,
yeah,
that
sorry,
was
Bolt Wave. Jeff, Bolt Wave is the new lava
worse.
spike, right?
My
We
bad.
can't
I don't know.
we
Yeah.
can't say lava spike anymore. It got
Um,
yeah.
and I wanted to at first say it was a mistake, but I'm like, that has to be so deliberate. Like you have to put lightning strike out and then click on my
Face.
avatar in order
Yeah.
for that to happen. I was also, not in the highest tiers at that point because I'm
Sure. Yeah.
rebuilding my rank.
Well, it's
But
more fun to do that. It's way more fun to draft when you're in silver.
yeah, sitting
um,
there with a handful of like three toughness creatures, I'm just like, okay, all right, I'm feeling good
yeah,
about that.
sick. Perfect.
Yeah,
Um, but anyway, with all this, I will say that the artifact decks can do a thing, but definitely not as strong as I initially thought that they were going to be. I thought artifacts were going to be quite strong, and it turns out that like some of the rares facilitate how strong those decks are, and not the commons.
I find in general, what I was just saying. Sorry, just something you said triggered this, where it's like I generally don't even think I necessarily play themes in this format,
Hmm.
like synergies. I just play good cards in the colors that I'm drafting.
That's a good call out for sure.
Like I know you will tend to have a bit more. vehicle mount stuff going on in your green white deck. But the more successful green white decks I've had are the ones that don't try to take like payoffs and extra incentives for doing that. Just if you have those cards, you have them, and sometimes you get paid off for it. But like,
Hmm.
don't try to build a synergistic deck. This is, to me, much more of a set that's all about just good stuff. It's like a mid-range, kind of like old school limited when the
Hmm.
themes weren't as strong, the synergies weren't as strong, and you just picked good cards in your colors. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
the best green common is this 4/4 for 4 because it's fucking huge, and that
Yeah.
goes into
Yeah.
green decks.
That's true. I mean, that
Kind
makes
of
sense.
having it's a little more core set limited feeling to me in terms of how I approach it.
That is a great call out because Cloudspire Captain, which is like the lord for the mounts and vehicles thing, is like
Yeah.
51.4%, which is very low.
It
Like
sucks. I actually don't like that card.
it's
Yeah.
a D level card. It goes around, no one cares for it. Um, and the best card in that deck is the Mammoth, but that's just because the Mammoth is amazing. And
Yeah.
any deck will play that card. Like it
Or
doesn't
like the
matter.
Lynx in the white,
Hmm.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, the Lynx is good because it's just fucking good.
Yeah, it's just a 2 mana, 2/3 lifelink. Like, and sometimes you ramp or not
But
ramp. You just
but
get cards in.
early on in the format, I was like, oh shit, Cloudspire Captain. Nice.
Hmm.
Like green white mounts is open. Because that's
Yeah,
what we've been accustomed to in recent sets. Is like
exactly.
a
But it's
card
like,
like
nope.
this would be excellent. It's on theme and it's a
Hmm.
lord and it's like, not that, 2/3 for 3 that's a lord. It's a totally fine card. It's actually just not what you want to do. You'd rather just play like a decent three
That's
drop that
that's true. And it just so happens that the exhaust cards are good cards in general, and they just
right.
get better when you put more mana into them, which the game happens to go to a state where you're looking for something. So having a mana sink is good. And if you happen to have synergies that work with that, that's great. Like getting
Yeah,
a 1/1 or something.
exactly. Yeah, like don't try to build for those payoffs. If they happen, they happen.
Hmm.
But the decks that are good are the ones that like you're saying, exhaust is just a good limited mechanic. It is just
Hmm.
strong and limited to have something that does one thing early and then gets more powerful in the late game.
Yeah.
Mount is just a good limited mechanic. And so
I, it's exactly like exhaust. I know this is a dead horse that I'm beating, but exhaust is kicker, but you get the creature early. It's like I play a creature
right.
and then I kick it later.
It's more
That's what it is.
flexible kicker. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's
Which
exactly what
is
it is, actually, because you can only do it once.
because
Literally,
you can only do it once.
it's like kicker with a payment plan.
Yeah, exactly. It's like kicker if I buy anything. There's a payment plan attached to it. So, um, yes. As far as the artifact decks go, I will say that obviously black is really important. Mainly Pact All Terror is the thing that you kind of want in all those types of situations,
Yeah.
because that is a big way that you can win the game. And Engine Rant, just because you don't want to have to be forced to deal combat damage to things. And then as far as the USA
This guy.
Just Guy decks go,
Yeah.
um, they are. Uh, I
Bad.
mean, obviously, I was saying that the blue red deck is the one that I like the most. That's the only one I like, in fact. I'm not really interested in playing white blue, and I'm not interested in playing red white. But blue red, I'm very interested in playing because if it's open, the deck is awesome.
And
But
blue
it
red
has,
is the exception to the thing I just said, which is
yes,
blue red is all synergy. It's like a
it's
cycling deck.
exactly. And it is
Yeah.
the only deck in the format that is all synergy.
Yeah. It is
Um,
it is not winning on the strength of its cards, the raw
yes.
power level. It is winning on the synergy that its cards have with
Hmm.
each other, which is, you get a bunch of payoffs for cycling
Hmm.
cards, and then you take everything that cycles and
Yes. I have a video up on YouTube where I have five of the Magmakin artillerists,
right.
and that just getting five
Fine.
of those cards ended up being like awesome. I was like, okay, I guess I play five of these and
Even
win.
though on its own it's the lowest win rate
Yeah,
red common.
but that's because you can get so many of them because it only fits in one specific deck.
Exactly.
Nobody wants it but that deck.
And when this deck is goes off, it's like it's crazy because they cycle something, and then, it
Just
gives
three
your
triggers.
creature it gives your creature like -3, -0, and draws them a card and deals 2
Hmm.
damage to you, and you're just like, that's like a crazy spell that just
That's a
happened.
really good spell.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that roadside blowout did a lot of stuff.
And it's all
Um,
made up of crap cards that like
yeah.
nobody else wants.
Hmm. And in a format where obviously there is removal around and people can pick this apart, but a lot of the format does revolve around playing threats and not necessarily protecting them, but like having a threat in this format is very important, and having a removal spell is a little bit not necessarily second, but the old like they're not as strong basically. Like I would rather be in a deck where I'm like I'm putting threats down on the table that have to be answered than be the deck that has to answer all the threats.
Yeah, and you see that in like obviously blue and white, the removal spell is the best common, but the
Hmm.
white one is just because it's very good,
Hmm.
and the blue one is ah just all it's decent. But the
Yeah.
other colors that have a healthy mix of strong commons, the removal spells are good, but usually not the best
Yes.
common. You'd prefer
Hmm.
the threat to the removal spell.
Yeah. The fact that the 6 mana 6/6 that gains you 4 life and has reach is better than the removal spell in green. Like that's a
Yeah.
big thing.
And
And I
Thunderhead Gunner is better than Lightning Strike kind of
that's
stuff.
huge. That's the crazy. That's the thing I'm going to remember forever about this set.
Right.
I'm never
Yeah.
going to forget
And
that.
anyone who says they picked that is cheating. Whoever picks that
Yeah.
in the if you
Fuck
picked
you.
both of
If
these
you
cards, I believe you. But if you
sure
just picked Thunderhead Gunner,
and
oh
just
no.
skipped over lightning strike, I'm gonna
Lightning
no
Strike was the only
way.
one I was sure of. I was like
Yeah.
sure that the best red common is Lightning Strike. All the other ones were a toss up.
I to be fair, I did pick Leon and Surveyor first, but I did pick Ride's End because I thought that that card was going to be very good.
Yeah.
Because it could be just because. But yeah. Anyway,
I
Jeff, I think
foolishly didn't take into account crew for this. Where I'm just like, there's just gonna be more tap stuff than
there's
we
so yeah,
picked.
and Saddle. I was like everything's
Yeah.
going to be tapped all the time.
Yeah.
There's so much tap shit. Also, there's a bunch of the gods that if you happen to run into them, this
Right.
is a card that gets rid of them. So
I was kind of like in my head, I was like, yeah, we've seen this before. It's usually mediocre.
mhm.
It's the expensive spell that if it targets something tapped, like whatever.
Yeah,
It's nice that it exiles, but
yeah,
yeah, I
but
didn't realize so many things are going to be tapped all the time that
it's
this
true.
is
But
just like a
also,
2 mana exile removal spell.
yeah, it's a bummer that the rest of the white commons are bad. But like in the format that that card has been in before, it was also good. So
Yeah, maybe I need to change my tune on these like expensive white things. They get better when you target
when
tapped
they're
creatures.
tapped or they're attacking or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, attacking would be a lot worse. But yeah.
yes, attacking is a lot worse. But the tapped ones, when they're it costs instead of 5, it's 2. I think Duskmord had one that was still
Right.
pretty good. It was behind the best one, but it was still like this is still really good though.
Right, right.
Um,
Attacking them, it means you have to have it at the right time. You can't like
mhm.
untap and
And play it,
get
yeah.
it off the table, which
Like
this
fierce retribution, yeah,
I
is
think in my
worse
head
than
this was like attacking, and I was like, oh, that sucks.
mhm.
But
Yeah,
the fact that you just take the damage, untap, and like get this thing off the table while it's still tapped is
yeah. You're like sweet
nice.
death.
Yeah.
Um, Jeff, do you have any final thoughts for
Technically,
this?
there's no death that happens. It's an
Oh,
exile
okay.
ability. Yeah.
Right, right. It doesn't die.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts before we go to last call about everything?
Yes, this set is wildly imbalanced. White is awful. Green is extremely good. Black
Hmm.
is good, and the other two colors or whatever. I still having fun with it though.
Hmm.
But so it's like I think we've talked about this before. Balance is an important part of a healthy like game that uh that you can play a long time and still enjoy. But people act like it's the only thing that matters, and it's not true. There have been balanced formats that I just didn't like,
Hmm.
and this is, I think, an example of a not very balanced format that so far I still like it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's correlated. Like, there's the battle for Zendikars of the world where again it was green. Green
Hmm.
was like way, way, way better than everything else, and it did ruin the format.
Wait, I thought
But
that was the opposite. I thought
oh,
green was
sorry,
the
yeah, no,
worst.
you're right. Green was like unplayable, and you should never take it. Yes, you're
Right.
right. Green was the white of this set.
Hmm.
So maybe this is just making up for Battle for Zendikar. But yeah,
It takes that long.
yeah, just like a decade later, however long it's been since that god awful set. Um, but yeah, so I that's all I would say is like when you're thinking about like how fun a format is, just see if you're having fun playing it and stop overthinking about like, oh, is it balanced? Is green ruining the format? Like, I don't know, just play. Are you having fun? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, my takeaways from this set is like, um, green blue is barely ever the best. Green black is also barely ever the best. This
Green
is,
black always sucks. And
yeah, like, it's so
yeah,
nice when the bad colors are good. Um, red, green, and green, white, less excited about.
green white is always good.
But
Green white is, I feel like green white coming in third best in the set
mhm,
is my issue with it is like green white's always like the third best deck.
it's
Just
like around that vibe.
yeah,
Um, but I will say that over the last year, blue red has been horrendous. And we finally have an archetype that actually works because it's strangely incestuous enough that nobody wants the cards, but also the cards are good enough that you can play them. Like that's a weird balance. Um, so I don't know if that will ever change, but if the like the blue red deck is open, it's so much fun.
yeah,
And I'm like I said last week, I'm often looking to see if it's open, and I want to
yeah.
draft it. So I like that about this, and it's not spells. You know, I like cycling's a little bit more fun, but it's in a fun cycling way, not a oops I win way.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's a lot of weird things you have to do with it, and it's only about discarding, not cycling. You know, so it's like,
That's
hey,
such a huge improvement because
yeah.
there are some cards that just like, Thunderhead Gunner, for
Mhm.
example, that you can get away with instead of just everything has cycling. Like,
It's not just cycling, but it's like your payoffs don't say when you cycle a card,
yeah, yeah, that's what I mean.
you
Because when
yeah.
they do that, they have to give so many cards cycling, and then the way the
Hmm.
deck works is it just cycles till it finds its payoffs, and like
Exactly.
it's the same old cycling deck. So the fact that this is like half cycling, like they put cycling
Hmm.
in, but the theme is really discard, self
Discard.
discard.
Hmm. And it's
Um,
like there are cards your opponents will play that make you discard cards, or there's like there's different things that will happen that are just like, oh sweet, this is awesome.
yeah,
I was happy with this, and it seems like that specific thing is a huge jump from Ikoria to here, which is the
yeah,
last time we had cycling in a draft
huge
format.
improvement.
Huge improvement, and great job, Wizards. So smart.
Because there's not that much stuff that actually has cycling. And
Exactly.
so, it,
And this is one of those things that Magic often forgets is that players, like, you want to put two things far apart from each other. The player is the string that puts them together. You don't want to be the string as the company that puts them together. You want the
right.
players to do that because that's the fun part. That's what they like to do. That's what we like to do is figure out what cards go together, and you just give us the pieces. It's like a Lego set without instructions. That's what we want.
Right. As opposed to the Lego thing that comes pre-built in the box.
Mhm.
You just take it out.
You just take it
Yeah.
out and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm missing a piece. Oh, I guess it's just kind of not as good now. Like
Yeah.
that's basic. I don't know how to put it back together because I wasn't given the instructions. Like
Yeah.
that's not what people enjoy. This set makes it feel like people are uh, it audiences enjoy when you show them that you understand that they're smart. Audiences love that
Yeah.
because they are smart and they can do this. So I don't know. I'm pleasantly surprised with all of this, and it's cool to see how little things have changed. Even though I had preconceived notions about cycling decks in general, not
Yeah.
realizing the nitty gritty of it when I was reading the cards. So
Yeah, I think I came in, my expectations for the set was like, oh, I'm sure it's going to be a really well designed set, but it's just not really my thing, the whole racing theme, so I probably won't
mhm.
like it that much. And the reality is like in a lot of ways, it's not that well designed a set. Like it's super imbalanced and there's weird shit going on all over the place, and the themes don't matter that much. But I am really enjoying it. It's like literally the exact opposite of what I
Hmm.
thought this set was going to
Yeah.
be coming in. So
Yeah.
pleasant surprise.
I think that is kind of just where I'm at with Magic in general, which is just like, as long as I'm having fun, I don't really care about a lot of other things. And I
Yeah,
think that WotC kind of understands that purpose of like, Gavin Verhey understands like how to make things fun, whether it always happens or not. But he does understand that his job is to make things fun,
right.
not to make a balanced format, not to make cards that are whatever, powerful or something. It's just like, how do I make a fun experience? That is the most important thing. And that is a really good main goal. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm also having fun with this format, even though it is imbalanced. And the Hot Wheels, whatever stuff doesn't bother me a single bit, not even a
I don't
little.
even really
I
notice
don't
it, to
care.
be honest. It's just
Even the
like,
Mario Kart stuff, I don't care. I
yeah,
saw it once, I was like, okay. And now I just think, oh, sweet, blue shell's really good though. And like that's all I
yeah,
care about.
picking up that blue shell for sure. Yeah.
That's all I think. So
But
if you,
Mario's terrible. How does that make you
he's
feel?
really bad. He's
Yeah.
horrible. I did lose to him once though, and I'm so angry about it, but um because I just forgot that he could do the things he does.
When
But
I first read him, because I think I was like, oh, he might be one of the better white commons when we were going through it.
mhm.
I thought he could just put a counter on any creature. And so
No.
I went to do it when I was playing with him. I was like, it has to be a mount? This is such an expensive ability for that. And he's like, not
Hmm.
even a mount himself. This sucks. This card blows.
Yes.
So I was
He's
like, I can't believe I mentioned this card on the podcast.
I think you had met. I was kind of confused when you said it. I was like, "Oh, sure, I guess." I was like, and then I looked back at him. I was like, "Am I wrong?" I was so
Yeah.
confused for a while, but
No,
um,
I thought it just puts a counter on a creature. And I was
no, no.
like, that seems decent. Like, it's expensive and, slow.
Hmm.
But hey, that would probably be one of the better white commons, given how terrible
Yeah,
the
no.
white
It's
commons are.
not that spider from Foundations that does that. No, 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 no. But
Yeah.
anyway, Jeff. Excited for what the future holds with Aetherdrift and all that stuff. But let's go to last call. Let's talk about the beer we are drinking this evening. And what we give it, what rating we give it. As always, we rate all of our beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. However, this does not have anything to do with what tier you are in currently, because everyone is in different tiers at different times. So don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. We spit them out, we pour them on the ground, and we hate them. They're disgusting. Bleh.
Yeah. Silver beers are macro brews or just uninteresting brews. We don't pour them out, but like if we spill them, we're not that mad.
That's true. Gold beers are fine. If you spill these beers, you'll be upset because you have to open another beer, and
Yeah.
hopefully, it's something good. But we don't really think about these very often.
Yeah. Platinum beers, these are solid. You would drink them again. You don't really want to spill this.
No, diamond beers are very good. You show these off to your friends. If someone spills this beer, you're like, "Ah, dude, come on, man! Like I brought that from like my buddy's house or the brewery down the street. Like, why? Why would you
You
do that?
kick it over 10 seconds into being here.
Jesus.
Yeah. And Mythic, these are the absolute best of the best. These are the greens of the beer world. Somebody spills this, friendship over.
Friendship over. Don't step on my scurry foot, buddy.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you
They
think about the
spill it
six?
onto your magic cards that contain a scurry foot. It's just like, no.
Yeah. All right. As a person who has done that before, I feel that makes me feel bad. I spilled a beer on my buddy's deck.
But
In
was it
my
a
buddy's
mythic
deck.
beer? Because that's
It was
really
it was
the
not.
kicker.
It was not though.
Yeah.
So that's pretty rough.
It's like, oh man, I'm not so upset about the Coors Light, but I am sorry
Yeah.
that your
I'm sorry
sleeves are
about
going
your
to smell
deck.
like beer. For...
I'll buy you new sleeves.
Yeah.
Jeff, six shooter. What you think? What do you think about this?
Okay, so this is a type of West Coast IPA that lots of people make, which
Hmm.
is hop forward, obviously, but in a sense that it feels like they're focusing a lot on the hops and not enough on the body for what I tend to
Okay.
like. And so I felt it was a bit thin. The flavor I liked, but the
Hmm.
body just didn't really jive with what I'm looking for. I like something with a little more meat on its bones, I guess.
Sure.
Bones.
I know what you
Um,
mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, but this is a way people make West Coast IPAs, and West Coast
Yes.
IPAs are lighter than East Coast in the
Hmm.
body.
And hoppier,
Yeah, they tend to
bitterer.
be more about the like citrus and hops and
Hmm.
less about the body. But I still like one with a bit. Maybe it's why I like East Coast IPAs better in general. But I
Yeah.
like them with a bit more body than this. But it
Hmm.
was tasty.
I agree with you. These are all hops that I like.
Yeah,
It is hop centric, but not like so bitter and in your face that you're like, can I finish this thing? Which
yeah.
I've definitely had before. But in the end, nowadays it's just like I don't know if I am I just an East Coast guy now? Like that's new to me,
I
but
think I might be. Yeah,
East Coast IPA is like what I'm looking for. I want something like hazy, big, juicy,
yeah.
something like that. And these like dry desert, tiny bones ones are just not what I want.
It's not. Yeah,
Even though
it's
this
not
one's
my
good.
preferred style, but it's
Yeah,
tasty. But I think you could cut the bottom four hops, just run Cascade and Citra, and add in a little more junk in the trunk on that body. And
but Jeff, this
now we're
is six
talking.
shooter. You have to have six things, right? Like you
Yeah, it
can't do,
could
you
be
can't.
Cascade, 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 Citra, Citra, Citra. Those are your
Interesting.
bullets.
Uh, well, that's just not a snappy name at all. But
Two shooter.
sure, two shooter.
Hey, you
P
could
sh-
even cut the Citra or the Cascade and go down to just one hop. If you add a little
just
more
a,
body, I'll take that trade.
just a smash beer.
Yeah,
Sure
I definitely taste the Cascade in this. So I don't know if they listed it first in that it's like
is the
the
most.
most
I would
prominent.
assume they would. I don't. Did they just put them in? No, they did not put them in alphabetical order. So yeah, I'm assuming they did them in order
Right.
of most to least. But
Yeah, if you've made beer and you've like smelled Cascade, you
mhm.
kind of know what that's like. This beer tastes like that to me.
So with that, where's this beer going? I mean, I know.
I think this is gold for me. Like
Whoa, that's not what I was thinking at all.
I I don't know if I'd picking this up again. That's all. That's it's like I think it's platinum in quality, but gold in terms of like
Picking it up.
this brewery has a lot of great beers, and I don't know that
Mm.
when I go there I'll pick this one.
I totally get that. See, I don't have like if I'm sorry, oh, big yawn. If I'm going back to Clifford, I'm probably picking up a ton of stuff, and I'll probably grab at least
Including
one
this.
more of
Yeah.
these. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say this is platinum, um, just because it's harder for me to get this stuff. And I liked it enough. It's not my preferred style for sure, but I don't think there's another style that they had that I was like, no, I'm only picking this, and
Right.
there's nothing you can do about it. But I have really liked their stuff. Plus, it's got tiny bones on the can. Like,
That's true. That's
how can
true.
you say no to this guy, right? So cute.
Uh,
Um, but sweet, platinum and gold for us this evening. Let's go to closing time. So, if you have any questions, you want to talk about us, talk about us, talk about the podcast, or anything like that, ask us what's going on. You can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Instagram and Blue Sky.
you also find us on Arena itself, username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at the regular underscore Zach on Instagram and TikTok, as well as I stream on Twitch and YouTube as the regular Zach. But Jeff, where can I find you?
Best place is our Discord channel. If you want live updates on Magic events and you want to talk about all of the cool, hot new decks, come to our Discord channel. The link for that is in the show notes.
That's right. Also, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there as well. Comment on our YouTube stuff. Go to our Patreon. We We accept tips. We really appreciate it. It's very helpful. But most of all, we just appreciate talking to all the folks that really enjoy the podcast. And we love chatting with you. So please chat with us. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that if you want to top 8 the Pro Tour, just 6-0 the draft.
Good night.
All right, that's fine.